Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I want to be talking to you on a subject matter I feel will be relevant to the world, and I feel that it will be relevant to you. I'm going to be talking to you about the place of people's management in running a successful organization. Organization are spread across everywhere you go these days. People started talking about running small organization, dovetailing into running large organizations. So this talk will be relevant to you today, whether you're just what they call as a startup, or you are expanding, or you are probably running a micro enterprise, or you are running a small business to the point where you are running large organization. Organization stem from the fact that the moment one or two persons come together, then it's often said that management has started. Okay, so you must of a necessity try to move away from running a one-man business to running partnership, to the point where you have to start running large conglomerates. Then it move on to the point where you start running a successful organization such as a country. Today, we have large or many organizations across the world suffering from the fact that they cannot get the right leadership to manage their country. You have countries like Nigeria, you have countries like Ghana. What about even countries as large as the United States of America? You have China, you have Russia. They have evolved and developed different management style and different management skill towards managing their organizations. So sub-Saharan Africa are facing major issue of how to get the right personnel to be able to manage their country as a nation. So that's why I'll be talking on the people's aspect of managing organization. So whether being it a small organization or being it as large as a country in itself. The journey to personnel management started with the fact that the moment one or two persons came together, there was now the need to set up management in place. And of course, you know those management principles. You have to be able to plan. Okay? You have to be able to organize. You have to be able to coordinate. You have to be able to provide the appropriate staffing. And at the end of the day, you have to do performance management leading to feedback mechanism. So, how come today, for your country, you now want to recruit? You're not following the principles. The journey started from personnel management, and anytime you talk about personnel management, it talks about getting people to work and being able to pay them the right wages. That is how it all started. Much later, people now started talking about human resource management, which is an entire gamut, putting up the appropriate management principles that I've mentioned earlier. Then you now move on to be able to recruiting, selecting, training, and development, so that at the end of the day, you are able to have a good human resource that will move that organization to the next level. Don't forget, in management and indeed in personnel management, there is rise and fall. You can have a leader or a manager that, at appropriate time, he was very good. So people talk about human resource now, and of recent, people are now talking about talent management. Talent management has to do with how do I attract the right personnel. Okay? You attract them, recruit them, select them, and be able to retain them to be able to do the work. And that's why you see sometimes some people don't have vacancy, but they find that in future this personnel will be relevant to what we're doing, and they recruit that person going forward. So that is the entire journey, moving from personnel management to human resource management, and people are now talking about talent management to the point where people are now talking about corporate resource management. And these are critical components and elements that people actually need to know for them to be able to manage large organization. Essentially, what are the resources that you require in managing an organization? The number one resources, which is the most important resources, is the human resource. People now talk about other resources like the financial resources, how much money that you need to actually put in place. And that's why you see nations are borrowing today. Even America as a nation, they are borrowing, talking about the fact that they require the financial resources to be able to drive their organization. And how do you go about that? You need those financial resources to be able to build the appropriate infrastructure. And infrastructure, which is derived from the financial component, is needed for you to be able to set up the appropriate structure for other resources to lean upon for you to begin to move and drive your organization to the next level. What about other physical resources? And these days, people talk about the information resources, which is critical. And in those days, people make money by the fact that your father used to be rich, and now you inherited his wealth. People move from that to the point where people now begin to use real estates. The fact that you buy a land, you allow it to appreciate, and much later you sell it and you begin to make money. Okay? So there are other various mechanisms of which on how to improve resources. And one of the latest is about information. How much information do you have? How are you able to galvanize and take your resources to the next level for you to be able to harness the resources that you have to be able to move on? So, but our emphasis is on the human resource components, and we have driven it from the point of personnel management to the point of human resource management to the point of talent management, and we're now talking about corporate resource management. So having known all these things and all these resources that is required, then we now look on how to move forward. Okay, so we're talking about knowing how to move forward. So once a leader has been selected, a leader needs to have the vision and the mission to be able to run that organization. And recently, we did a survey to see the leaders that have succeeded. What did they actually did for them to have succeeded? And we took a swipe at some few leaders, and we realized that of a particular organization, they had a successful leadership plan. And how did they start? They meet as friends on constant basis to actually look at how their kind of organization they want to run. So they formed the vision and the mission. And when it was time to start that organization, it became quite easy and quite simple for them to start that organization. So what did they do? The guy who was secretary to that organization or to that arrangement was the one who became the first leader. And what did he do? He just started implementing all the plan that they have. So I want to urge you today that whenever you find yourself as a manager anywhere, you must plan ahead. Okay? And planning can be a short-term plan, it can be a medium-term plan, and it can also be long-term plan. There are things recently we call what we refer to as quick wins. What are those low-hanging fruits? So people talk about that. And of course, in most leadership position now, people want to talk about the first 100 days in office. What are you able to achieve in the first 100 days in managing that office? So planning is important, and it's important also to have your vision, which is the vision is where you are going. Where do I want to go in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years, in the next 5 years? Talking about short-term plan, medium-term plan, and long-term plan. Recently, I was in Lagos, Nigeria, to participate in what is regarded as African Business Convention, ABC. And we had the opportunity of the governor of Lagos State coming to share the vision and the mission that they have. And if you look at a state like Lagos, recently they have looked at, they have had successful leaders running and driving that state. And every time they come, every leader we want to latch on to see where the last leader stopped and take off from there. And today, you hear about things like the mega city. Okay, they are now talking about a kind of running a global organization where you can have things like internet running across the state and turning the entire state into a Wi-Fi. These are vision that leaders must have. From vision, you must have a mission. Mission talks about the fact that how do I want to achieve these goals and this objective that I've set out going forward. So, as leader, you must start with having a vision. You must dovetail that to the mission. Then you must set out objective and having the appropriate goals for you to be able to drive that organization. Just imagine a typical match between Arsenal and Chelsea. The match is going on, and we remove the two goalposts. There will be confusion, and that's what happened in human resource management. So once you have been recruited and selected to do the work that you have been asked to do, put that vision in place, do that vision, set out the goal. Because the moment you remove the goalpost, what you will witness is that people will begin to run helter-skelter. We want to avoid this kind of scenario now. Okay, so there are basic components that are required for you to have a successful human resource management. One of them is recruitment and selection. You talk about things like payroll management. You talk about employee engagement. You talk about things like training and development. Okay, then you talk about things like corporate engagement and how to move that organization to the next successful level. So those are three key components that is required in human resource management. So I want to take all this gamut of pictures I've painted to see how we can possibly get the right leader for our country and indeed for other countries that are having management issues today. So, and that brings me to the issue of recruitment and selection. Okay, I mentioned the fact that in running large conglomerates like Shell, like Petroleum BP, like running NNPC Limited, like running the large banks, okay, they do things like setting vision and mission in place. But how come that we want to do that for a nation like Nigeria? We're not doing the appropriate thing. We're not putting this mechanism and all these things that are put in place for us to be able to drive a nation. We're saying now that we want to manage a large organization such as Nigeria. And we're now saying that there's a need for us to say what are the qualifications, what are the job description that this leader is going to have. Okay? I mean, I don't see any reason why the president of any nation should have less than a degree. Okay? You should have a degree because you have gone through the 4 walls of school, whether it's virtual or whether it's physical. Let's make it possible for us now to say that our leader must have a degree, just as you say in large organization. Then, of course, he must also have what I describe as experience. Okay? I am not against not too young to run bill, but I feel successfully that we require to have someone who has managed maybe a small organization before, maybe a medium organization before, or even a large organization before, who has the adequate experience to know how to go about it and what necessarily to do if issues arise. So in our recruitment process, don't forget that we use the political party as our entry point. So you have a situation today that at the national level or even at the subnational level, you have certain criteria that must be fulfilled. Why can't we also dovetail that to the political party for you to select the person to represent you? What are the qualifications that person must have? It's important that we have and know all these things so that at the end of the day, from the party position, okay, they are able to bring in a candidate to be able to compete at the national and the subnational level to be able to get that require an adequate position. The era of paddy is past because that will not take you anywhere. If I want to take a case of Nigeria or even as Ghana, we have come to realize that because a president emerged from maybe Southwest or because he had emerged from South, we have discovered a situation where those leaders didn't even construct the road that led to their local government, not to talk even about their house. So we're not talking about, we need to now move away from the era of the fact that this is my brother or this is my sister. We should move on to the era to say this is the person that can do the job, and if we give him the job, he should be able to do the job, and we should be able to hold him accountable for that. So the recruitment process is very, very critical, and it's very, very important for us to be able to drive a successful nation. And once we begin to lay down principle of selection, okay, like I said, our entry point is through the political party. Once we get the political party in place, and they're able to follow the required position for them to be able to drive, to get the right leader to come and compete, then there should be things like presidential governorship debate. And these things should be in our constitution, because we must move on to the era where people want to decide whether they want to come for those debates or not. I tell you today, if you bring in political debate into our recruitment and selection process, you are in the process of trying to solve a major problem. At that point, you will wither away those who cannot, speak to us in public, those who cannot articulate themselves, those who cannot, be able to put themselves up for positions. And I tell you, a country like South Korea, that was the singular thing that they did, and today South Korea is competing with global organizations. And for me, I want to refer to organizations as even a nation, as even countries, because what happens is that what most organizations pass through is what most countries pass through when it comes to things of management and leadership right now. So, of a necessity, and I want us to give it a thought, okay? Not just to say that we must do political debate, we must put it in our constitution. That's to avoid people from deciding or determining whether they want to be in those debates or not. And of course, for a long time now, America has put presidential debate as one of the things that they do. It may not have been in their constitution, but it's now a moral body, a moral obligation for you as a president to be, or as a governor to be able to go into a debate, to face your opponent, and to be able to, compete and deliberate, and to be able to see. And from there, people will see how articulate you are, how organized you are, how, you are able to speak. And it's been concluded that the moment you have the confidence to speak in public, then the tendency is that your leadership skill is up for you to be able to lead a nation, because boldness is one of those things that is required. One of those things again that we must also try to see is that for you to recruit somebody for an organization, the person must be healthy. Okay? Of course, you are even expected to produce a health certificate. If, for example, now you want to work in HP, okay, or you want to work in Samsung, they will not just recruit you because you are even good. Your heads must be able to carry you at the end of the day. So we must require our employees, our leaders, to produce a certificate to say, in the next 4 years, in the next 5 years, I will be able to weather the storm. My head will be able to carry me. Let's run away and avoid situation these days where people, they run into position only for them to use the money of that organization or of that nation to begin to treat themselves. These are things that are not right. These are things that we must necessarily have to run away from. These are things that we need to avoid going forward. There must be health check, and there must be a certificate. Okay? Health is something that can fade on oath. The next thing that you are expected to do is that you are expected to resign immediately. So these are some of the things that we need to, begin to put to place. Then the place of technology. Technology, innovation, creativity are things that are driving the world right now. Okay? How ingenious is your selection process? Okay? When you look at great organization now, they are looking for the best talent to be able to drive that organization to the next level. So why can't we as a nation, using key talent management principle of attraction, selection, and retention, to be able to get the right leaders for us. For example, we can begin to have a system where we have a political system that begin to recruit people and put them on standby. And one of those things that we can use is the regional approach. So, and when you talk about the regional approach, we can have a system where we can have like 6 vice presidents assisting the president. So we know the next vice president that is going to succeed the president that is currently in power right now as we talk. And that takes me to Rotary Club. Rotary, they always have something they call the incoming president, you know, overseeing what the president is doing. So we must become creative and innovative for us to be able to, you know, follow up through the recruitment and selection process and be able to do the appropriate thing. And I've mentioned again that technology is key to whatever we're doing. Okay, technology is a situation where we now see how can we backtrack to check the things that we're doing in case the system goes wrong. How can we check to ensure that everything that we're doing is transparent? Okay, so people today, because they find themselves in certain position, do some certain things that will favor them, but those things end up working for them eventually. Okay, and I ask the question now, why do people actually want to be leaders? Is it because of the money that they want to make? Okay, and we must begin to reorient our people to the point where we now begin to see what people commonly refer to as servant leader. Okay, the fact that you find yourself in position, you are just privileged. Okay, so the servant leadership strategy must be something that is key, that we must follow through to be able to do that. Then, having selected the right leaders now, one of the things that we keep making mistake about is about training and development. Okay, the moment you become a president, the moment you become a head coach, because the moment you become a leader in that organization, you feel that that's a stopgap for you to go and relax at the end of the day. That's not how it's being done. Okay, you must be able to train yourself and retrain yourself from time to time. And that's where I feel again Africa is having issues today. In Ghana, Nigeria, they are trying to recruit the coach, and they are asking the question, should that coach be a local coach, or should he be a foreigner? Okay, so, and I'm saying to you today that whether that coach is foreign or is local, what is important is that is he able to follow the HRM mechanism for him to be able to deliver. And of course, the last Nations Cup was won by an indigenous school from Senegal, and that coach was given opportunity of up to 10 years. So they had a vision they were following, and that vision and the mission led to them producing great African players. Okay, and at the end of the day, it ended up in them winning a Nation Cup. What happens is that after recruiting that coach, a training and development plan was put in place for him to follow, and he kept attending those training. He kept attending those international outlook. And today, what happened is that an indigenous coach from Senegal was able to win the Nations Cup for them. So, whenever you find yourself as a leader, training and development must be something that you will do on a continuous basis. And training is important because, again, it enables you to expose to other people. It enables you to meet even with the trainer, to be able to share mind. And somebody says today that if you really want to develop, you have to open up your mind to be able to share with other people. So what training are the leaders undergoing? Okay, for us, or for me as a person, there are key management training, there are key leadership training, there are key other training that every leader must necessarily have to undergo, and he must produce certificate in the course of him being that leader, to ensure that that training he's undergoing is actually now making use of that training to develop whatever enterprise that is put in place. So for me, I regard nations today as enterprise. Enterprise are organizations basically put in place, either they are profit or non-profit, but they must have some necessary mechanism put in place for them to be able to achieve the results that have been put in place of them. Okay, so we must also look at the subject of strategic planning. So it's often said that, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. But of critical and of importance is the fact that you must necessarily have to plan from day one. And planning is not just about planning today. We're talking about strategic planning. Strategic planning has to do with the fact that the vision and the mission that you have put in place, whatever objective that you are setting, must be able to meet up with those things that you have set out to achieve at the end of the day. So what we are saying is the place of people in running a successful organization. And we have said that organization is a situation where one or two people come together to be able to set objective for them to be able to achieve that which they have set out. And there are a lot of organizations. Okay, you have small scale organizations, you have large scale organizations, you have nations running as organizations now. And the moment you run all these things as enterprise, then you are bound to be able to follow those principles that we have mentioned in the course of this talk for you to be able to achieve. Don't forget that human resource management started as being personnel management. That's when you talked about them, how to get people to work and how to be able to pay them the required salary that they have put in place. So, moving forward, as a people, we must recognize the fact that the human component of any organization is the most important component. Okay? You have the people that are leading and you have the people that are following. The question is, who is always at fault? Is it the people that is leading or the people that are following? Okay? It's like asking the egg and the chicken, which one comes first? Okay? So, moving forward for developing nations, okay? For organizations that are emerging, you should bear in mind that the people's component is very, very important. Whether you are running a small organization or you are running a country as an organization, okay? The moment you realize that fact and you'll be able to set up the people appropriately to follow the leaders, then they will be able to now hold the leaders accountable. That takes me now to the subject matter of feedback. There is something in human resource management that is critically called the performance management. So performance management starts from the fact that you have set objective at the end of the day. Then at the end or even at the middle of your running of that organization, you must ask yourself, have I been able to live up to expectation? You are the one that should ask you questions. But you have today where they deploy financial resources and they now use larger resources to try to embellish what they are doing. They are the one that is setting the target. They are the one that are determining whether they are able to meet those targets. You should allow the people to determine, to say whether you are doing well or not. And that's where my brother, my sister syndrome comes in. Okay? So let us avoid that. Let the people who has put us in place to be able to judge us, to say how are we doing. Despite the fact that we do employing appraiser, there should be leadership appraiser to determine to what extent has this leader be able to perform. Okay, you have leaders coming to destroy the system, telling you that what they have done is supposed to be done. So for me, performance appraiser feedback mechanism should be even automated. It should be automated to the point where people can now determine whether you actually perform at the end of the day. And you can even put figures to that to say your performance for this tenure was 60% or was 40%. Allow the system to judge you. Allow people to judge you. Then most importantly, try to put systems in place that can outlive you, that can outrun you. Okay? People try to build systems around themselves, and when they end up leaving the system is unable to run by itself because the people are not putting systems in place. So whatever organization that you find yourself, use the human resource principle and try to put systems in place for you to be able to drive that organization. And I'm hoping that as you follow through all these principles and all these guidelines that we're preaching here or we're discussing here, you will be able to use the human resource management capability and style to be able to run your organization to a success.